My best friend asked if she could spend Christmas at our house a couple of months back, and I said, of course, it'll be nice to have my friend here. The last few weeks I've been trying to get an idea of when she will be here for the day so I can plan Christmas dinner, etc. But every time she said that she didn't know, and it depends on her boyfriend. Annoying, but fine. She told me a couple of days ago that she'd be up at the crack of dawn, which I wasn't expecting, but okay. So my partner and I opened our presents the night before, and I made sure to get an early night to be up early for my friend coming over. She comes early as expected, and I spend the morning chilling with her, playing games, and having some nibbles before I get started on the dinner. I got a lot of extra since she and my partner's brother would be there. As I was peeling potatoes, she announced that her boyfriend was outside. I was like, huh, what do you mean? She told me that his plans hadn't worked out, so she was going to spend the rest of the day with him instead. This really irked me. I'd planned our Christmas around her being here, but not as much as the next part. To preface the next part, I need to go back a couple of years. In 2021, my baby daughter died. It was the worst time of my life, and that Christmas was horrific. It was made worse by my sister telling me that she was pregnant, even though my other sister had asked her if she could wait until Christmas was over, but she ignored her. As someone who has just lost their child, it's really hard to hear that sort of thing. As much as you are happy for your loved ones, it brings up a lot of memory and emotion, which is difficult. My best friend knew this and listened to me cry back then. Back to my best friend about to abruptly leave as I'm peeling spuds. She decides to then tell me that she is pregnant. She then decides to moan for the next few minutes about how annoying pregnancy is while I'm trying not to cry and just repeating, "You'll be fine." She leaves. There's been such a buildup of annoyance over my friend. For the last 2 years, she's come to me every time they fight, and she's cried hard. I've listened to her and held her as she's been upset about the fact they've thrown bottles at each other across pubs, how he cheated on her, and she keyed his car, how she ran at him in her street naked just to punch him, etc. Just last week, she phoned me at night doing her usual drunk crying to me on the phone as they once again were fighting in the pub and asking if she could come here. I don't say yes because every time I have in the past, it's not gone that way. I'll book taxis for her to just not take them. I'm banned from some taxi services now because of it. She'll at some point during the call announce that he's calling her, hang up immediately, and I won't hear from her for up to 2 weeks. I just feel like today was the last straw for me. Please don't misunderstand me. I'd be incredibly happy for my friend having a baby, for her to be happy, if it wasn't for all of the surrounding circumstances and the way that she told me. I'd literally had a cry to her an hour before about how hard I find Christmas. I just find it incredibly inconsiderate the whole way it's gone down, and I'm sick of being her backup for when she's bored. I guess I'm just looking to rant, maybe get your stories of similar-ish situations to not feel alone. It absolutely sucks to have to let go of a friend, but I honestly don't see how I can continue this relationship. Edit. To her defense, I believe she literally just found out she was pregnant as she had said no to a drink today and stated she'd stopped vaping. So there is that. I don't doubt, however, that the fighting will likely continue. For those asking if it's a potential DV situation, I wouldn't say so. The physical comes from her side, really. Thank you so much to everyone who has commented. It's reaffirmed my decision, which is a good thing. I suppose I gave her so many chances over the last couple of years because we've been friends for over a decade, and I guess I hoped she'd sort herself out in the end. But clearly, no dice, and it's just getting worse. Second edit. With the DV situation, I just meant that he doesn't seem to be harassing her. The other way around is more likely, but they both seem to be on an even keel in that regard. So I've tried to stay out of that. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Your friend comes off as horribly inconsiderate and thoughtless. It's bizarre and rude not to stay for longer or discuss more detailed plans in advance. Or maybe have the boyfriend say hello. Viewed in the most positive light, your friend did want to see you and was excited to share her pregnancy, but is some kind of scatterbrain or bad planner and also forgot about your tragic incident. It sounds like your friend has some problems, especially with this boyfriend, and not being able to say no, but she should still treat you a lot better. Sorry, that was a real bummer. Comment 2. You see a friend. She sees an emotional support person. Not an overreaction on your part. She's woefully inconsiderate of you, your time, your space, and energy. Also, read the room. She doesn't care what you've gone through. It's all about her. Time to move on. There are better people out there who aren't a drain on you and who will appreciate you. Now for the update. Hey everyone, it's been 3 days since my last post, and boy do I have an update for you. I thought things couldn't get more complicated, but life has a way of surprising you. After my friend left on Christmas, I was left with a mountain of food and a heart full of disappointment. I spent the rest of the day trying to keep it together, but I couldn't shake off the feeling of betrayal. My partner tried to cheer me up, but the day was pretty much ruined. The next day, I got a call from my friend. She was sobbing, saying she and her boyfriend had a massive fight and she was scared for her baby. I was torn. Part of me wanted to tell her that I couldn't be her emotional dumpster anymore, but the other part remembered the good times we had, like when we backpacked through Europe after high school, promising to always have each other's backs. Against my better judgment, I told her to come over. When she arrived, she looked like a mess. She confessed that the fight started because she told her boyfriend about the baby, and he accused her of trying to trap him. They had a history of toxic behavior, like the time she threw his phone out the window because he got a text from a female coworker. But this was different. There was a baby involved now. As we talked, she admitted that she wasn't sure if keeping the baby was the right decision, given their unstable relationship. I was shocked. This was the same girl who in high school had dreamed of having a big family. She had always been the maternal one in our group, taking care of us whenever we got into trouble. I spent the whole night comforting her, and by morning she seemed to have calmed down. She thanked me and left, saying she needed to think things through. I felt drained, but hoped that maybe this was a wake-up call for her. Later that day, my partner's brother came over to help with the leftover food. He's always been the quiet type, but we've gotten closer since my daughter passed away. He was there for me in ways I can't even describe, like the time he just sat with me in silence when I couldn't bear to talk to anyone. As we were packing food for him to take home, he hesitated and then told me something that left me speechless. He had been seeing my friend in secret for a few months. They had tried to keep it quiet because they didn't want to cause drama. But now, with the pregnancy, he felt like he had to come clean. I was floored. My partner's brother, the one person who had been my rock, was potentially the father of my best friend's baby. He explained that they had a connection that they couldn't ignore, and he was planning to step up and be there for her and the baby. I didn't know how to feel. I was angry, hurt, but also strangely relieved that maybe my friend would have some stability. But then he dropped another bombshell. He wasn't sure if the baby was his or her boyfriend's. They had been careful, but there was still a chance. The next 2 days were a blur. My friend came back and we all sat down to talk. It was the most intense conversation I've ever had. Accusations were thrown, tears were shed, and in the end, my friend decided to take a break from both men to figure out her next steps. As for me, I'm still processing everything. My partner is just as shocked, and we're trying to support his brother through this. It's a mess, but there's a part of me that hopes this baby might bring some joy into our lives, even with the complicated situation. Boyfriend hates my body hair, so I stop shaving, and he's shocked. He tries to gaslight me, but the tables turn when The actual problem is kind of a bore, so I'll make it as entertaining as possible. So my boyfriend and I have been dating for 6 months. For 3 of those months, we have been sexually active. Beforehand, we had a conversation about what we prefer in terms of body hair, and I told him I like it when a guy is trimmed but not completely hairless, and he told me that he doesn't care. Clearly, that was a lie. I usually just trim it short with an electric razor. There's obviously still hair there, but it's much more comfortable and, in my opinion, prettier than the pyramids of Giza that pop up on my cooch after shaving. After a month of putting up with my trimmed bush, he finally told me that it was prickly and itchy against his body and face, plus gave him rashes. I never once saw a rash on that man's face, but whatever. I can imagine that Ms. Cactus is not the most pleasant thing to be rubbing against. When he asked me to shave it bare, I agreed, but forewarned him what the aftermath was going to look like after 3 days. After the first 3 days of perfection were up, he said that when he saw my rocky road, he couldn't even look at it. I wasn't offended. My lady parts are a horror movie worthy after the razor bumps and ingrown hairs set in. So I asked him if he was fine with trimming now, and he said, "Maybe we can try waxing?" I flat out said no and told him about how traumatized I am by my first and last experience at the waxing salon. He grumbled and haughtily sniffed in disdain like one of those ladies in Bridgerton before saying that he doesn't care what I do with my pubic hair again. Well, I decided to test him to see if he was telling the truth this time, which was probably a weenie move on my part, and grew it out to a thick and curly bush over the past month. Just in time for Christmas too, as it looks like Santa detached his beard and glued it around my vulva. Last night he looked at it and didn't seem to mind. He even laughed at my joke where I made a hand puppet atop my pubic hair and said ho ho ho. So I finally thought we had a winner. But then, he did no foreplay and just stuck his weenie in, humped me for 15 minutes while freakily looking into my eyes without blinking. Blue-eyed people, seriously. And then rolled over and fell asleep. I asked him if I could ride him so that I could at least orgasm too, but he said he couldn't believe I would become this lazy with my hygiene. This has never happened, like ever. Even when my whole vulva had ingrown hairs and looked like it suffered from the pox, he still was an attentive, although slightly put-off lover, so this is something serious. Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. He doesn't get to have hygiene laws when it comes to you shaving your body. 6 months in. Tells you how controlling and immature he will be later. Also, he's punishing you by not giving you pleasure in return because your shaving wasn't to his liking. He isn't worth it, and that's something to take with you into adulthood. Comment 2. He's disgusting and controlling, and I would absolutely put him in the trash. But if you want to stay, tell him he can get waxed first. The entire thing, all of it. Shaft, balls, taint. See how he likes it, and tell him he has to get an entire wax every time he wants you to. Now for the update. Hey everyone, thanks for all the support on my last post. I know the issue might not be the most exciting thing in the world, but things have taken a turn, and I've got some updates that I think you'll find pretty interesting. So, after my boyfriend's weird behavior that night, things got even more bizarre. Remember how he used to be okay with my trimmed situation down there? Well, it turns out he had been secretly hoping I'd cave and keep it bare forever. He started making passive-aggressive comments about personal grooming standards and taking pride in one's appearance. It was like he was trying to guilt me into shaving again. But here's the kicker. I found out that his ex-girlfriend was a professional swimmer, the kind that shaves everything to be more aerodynamic in the water. I guess he got used to that level of smoothness and just couldn't let it go. He never mentioned her before, but I stumbled upon some old photos on his laptop when we were looking for a movie to watch. There she was, all sleek and shiny, and it clicked why he had such a fixation on hairlessness. I confronted him about it, and he got all defensive, saying that he didn't want to bring up his ex because he thought it would make me uncomfortable. But the truth was out, and I couldn't unsee it. I felt like I was being compared to some Olympic-level grooming standard. We had a huge fight about it. I told him that his expectations were unrealistic and that I wasn't going to change my body to fit the mold of his past relationships. He apologized, but it felt hollow, like he was just saying what he thought I wanted to hear. Now, here's where things get steamy. Despite our argument, we were both still pretty attracted to each other, and one thing led to another. We ended up having makeup intimacy, which was intense and passionate, a stark contrast to the robotic encounter from before. But even in the heat of the moment, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. A few days later, I was doing laundry and found a receipt in his pants pocket. It was for a waxing salon. My first thought was that he was cheating on me with someone who met his hairless criteria. I was ready to confront him with the receipt when he came home from work, but he surprised me with a confession before I could even say anything. He admitted that he had been going to the waxing salon himself. He wanted to see what it was like to be completely hairless, to understand my perspective. He said it was the most painful experience of his life, and that he had a newfound respect for what I went through. He even showed me the red bumps and ingrown hairs that were now decorating his nether regions. I was shocked. I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Here was my boyfriend, who had been so insistent on me being hairless, now suffering the consequences of his own demands. It was like he had to walk a mile in my shoes, or well, my wax strips, to really get it. But that's not even the juiciest part. After his waxing debacle, he became more understanding and stopped making comments about my grooming choices. We were getting along better than ever, and I thought we had finally moved past the whole hair issue. Then, last night, as we were cuddling in bed, he got this guilty look on his face and told me he had something to confess. My heart sank, thinking the worst. He hesitated for a moment before spilling the beans. Turns out, he had been so embarrassed about the waxing incident that he joined an online support group for men who had similar experiences. And through this group, he realized that he had a fetish for hair. All this time, he had been projecting his own insecurities and desires onto me, trying to suppress his true preferences because he thought they were weird. I was floored. All the drama, the fights, the waxing, it was all because he couldn't come to terms with what he actually liked. He looked at me, waiting for my reaction, probably expecting me to be angry or disgusted. But honestly, I just burst out laughing. The whole situation was so absurd, and I was relieved that we could finally be honest with each other. We spent the rest of the night talking about our likes and dislikes, without any judgment or expectations. Brother mocks my boyfriend's game night effort, so I expose his toxic jealousy at dinner. Dad's secret shocks everyone and changes everything. Just to clarify, my family, apart from my dad, doesn't want to have my boyfriend over for Christmas. My dad is very supportive of having him over, but he's in the minority. Ever since I brought my boyfriend over to meet my family, my siblings, 32 years old female, 37 years old male, have been super shitty to him and have campaigned with my mom to exclude him from family events. My boyfriend and I have been together for 2 years. He hasn't been over for Easter and Thanksgiving, and I stayed home this year for Thanksgiving because my mom said he was not invited. Last year, he wasn't invited for Christmas either, and when I went alone, he was very hurt by it. It caused some division between us for a short while afterwards. My father, however, was very disappointed that my mom and siblings couldn't accept the fact that our family was growing and that it would inevitably grow. I can't explain why my siblings don't like my boyfriend. He is such a friendly person who has never said or done anything wrong to them. My brother has never been in a relationship or lived away from home, and so I feel that he has some kind of weird attachment to my family and its traditions. This past Thanksgiving, my mom said that even though my boyfriend wasn't invited, my sister's boyfriend was. She promised that Christmas would be different and I would be able to have him over, so I invited him. Yesterday, over a phone call, I was checking in to make sure he was coming home with me, and she adamantly told me no. I reminded her that she promised that he could come for Christmas, and, on the verge of tears, she kept saying no, and that it would make my brother and sister upset. I told her that I wouldn't be coming home, and she proceeded to yell at me over how I'd be ruining Christmas for everyone if I didn't show up. I'm in such a difficult situation. If I go to my family for Christmas without my boyfriend, it would likely ruin our relationship because he was so hurt last year and he wouldn't feel included by my family. I would also have to uninvite him, which is extremely uncouth and frankly unloving. But if I stay with him for Christmas, it would conversely ruin my relationship with my family. As far as I know, an invitation was extended to my sister's boyfriend, but not mine. I don't understand why my mom and siblings can't accept my boyfriend as part of the family. I don't know how to negotiate with my mom to allow my boyfriend to come home with me. I spoke to my dad last night as well, and he said it's up to me to change her mind. And I don't know how to do that because she's such an obstinate lady. My brother and sister are unwaveringly immature about it. Does anyone have advice on how I can convince her to allow him to come? Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. I second the other commenter. Either there's a valid reason why your family doesn't like your boyfriend that you're not telling us for one reason or another, in which case we can't help you if there's critical details you're leaving out, or your family has no good reason for hating him, and your efforts should be spent on asking your family why your boyfriend is excluded, confirming with them whether your sister's boyfriend was invited, explaining how your family's exclusion is negatively affecting you, making a strong case for what your relationship means to you. Comment 2. Tell your mom that you and your boyfriend are a package deal. She gets both or neither. It's up to her which. No negotiation is needed. Both she and your siblings are being totally unreasonable. Especially if your sister's boyfriend is invited, and your dad is being a spineless jerk for not interceding on your behalf. You have to put your foot down. Don't ruin your relationship with your boyfriend just because your mom is being a butthead. Once you miss a holiday at 2, she'll almost certainly back down. If not, it's their loss. Now for the update. Day 1. So, I posted a few days ago about the drama with my family not wanting my boyfriend over for Christmas. Well, buckle up because things have escalated. After my last post, I decided to have a heart-to-heart with my dad. He's always been the peacemaker in the family, and I thought maybe he could offer some insight. Turns out, my dad had a story of his own. Back when he was dating my mom, her family wasn't too keen on him either. It took a lot of patience and some grand gesture of fixing her dad's old truck to win them over. He suggested I find a way to show my family how much my boyfriend cares about being part of the family. Taking his advice, I planned a surprise dinner at my place, inviting just my parents. I wanted to create a neutral space where my boyfriend could shine without my siblings' negative influence. My mom was hesitant, but my dad convinced her to come. Day 2. The dinner was last night, and oh boy was it a night to remember. My boyfriend outdid himself, cooking a meal that could rival any chef's. He even dug up old family recipes from my grandma to make it feel special. My mom was visibly impressed, but still had her guard up. Halfway through dinner, my brother unexpectedly showed up. He'd heard from my sister about the dinner and was fuming. He started in on my boyfriend, accusing him of trying to replace him in the family. My boyfriend, bless his heart, kept his cool. He acknowledged my brother's feelings and expressed how he just wanted to be accepted, not to take anyone's place. The tension was thick, but then my dad did something unexpected. He stood up and gave a little speech about family and growth, about how he was once in my boyfriend's shoes. He talked about the importance of acceptance and how my boyfriend had shown nothing but respect and love for our family. Day 3. Today, my mom called me. I braced myself for another argument, but instead she was calm. She admitted that seeing my boyfriend's effort and hearing my dad's words made her realize how unfair they'd been. She said she didn't want to be the reason for my unhappiness or the cause of a rift in the family. And then, the shocker, she invited my boyfriend to spend Christmas with us. She even suggested he could help her with the Christmas dinner, which is a big deal because nobody is allowed in the kitchen when she's cooking the holiday meal. I was floored. I immediately called my boyfriend, and he was over the moon. We both know it won't be perfect, and my siblings might still be cold, but it's a start. If you like this video, you'll probably like these too. Also, while you're here, please consider subscribing. It's your support that keeps this channel alive and allows me to make better and longer videos. Have a great day.